All right, I have to say something. Elden Ring, it might be an amazing game, but it is too difficult. Now, I just saw a video from Video Game Donkey calling this game out, saying it is too difficult. And I just want to say that I agree with him, but a lot of people are going to call him out and say something like, oh, he's just not that good. He used Mimic, and I just did a no summons level 1 run. So I feel like after beating this game, at level 1 trying to use minimal cheese to do it, right? I feel like I have a certain level of authority to actually call the game out and it's bullshit. Because a lot of people, they say, this game's too hard, and someone else will just say, get good, but you can't say that to me because I already did. Now, before I start, I just want to say that I really love this game. This might be my favorite game of all time, but I still feel like I need to criticize the fact that some of the bosses are a little bit too obnoxiously difficult. And I also think that there's a large percentage of players who are using cheese to beat these bosses. Now, I don't know what the percent is, but if only 10% of the player base are doing what we normally say is a normal run of Dark Souls, which is usually, minimal magic, melee, no summons, if only 10% or so of the player base are doing that, and the other 90% are defaulting in the end game to Mimic and multiple procs to try to beat the bosses with Mimic, then you're not really learning boss mechanics. The level of difficulty has kind of reached an obnoxious level in this game that Dark Souls 3 never really got to. And I also just want to say before I get into it that I'm not trying to gatekeep people or be a gatekeeper by saying no summons or no magic or anything like that. But I am trying to say that if you want to get that experience of knowing boss mechanics and memorizing the dodge roll patterns and just beating it on your own, that this game has some problems. It might not actually be the best Dark Souls when it comes to boss enjoyment specifically. Now, the first issue that I'm going to get into and address is that every single boss in this game, if you want to heal, forces you to do an Olympic sprint to run away from him. And this is because they'll have a combination of ranged attacks or stabby attacks. Like Crucible Knight is a great example. He doesn't look like he's going to get you, but every time you try to heal, he's going to fucking stab you. Or Margit is going to throw a dagger at you, or Radagon will throw a lightning thing at you. I would say maybe Millennia Phase 2 is the worst offender, where you just have to fucking run away. The bosses won't let up until you're halfway across the arena. And this isn't that fun. I think the healing speed in Dark Souls 3, I want to say it was faster to heal in that game. There are a lot of times where you do a quick heal, maybe just barely roll out of the boss. That doesn't happen in Elden Ring. If you try to heal in Elden Ring, you just fucking get smacked around and you die. Which is why 15 heals felt like a little bit too much in Dark Souls 3, and it kind of doesn't feel like enough in this game, because the bosses will not fucking let you heal, and it does get a little bit annoying. It's maybe not as bad as I'm making out to be, but it's like, not every boss need to be like Pontiff from Dark Souls 3, where he jumping attacks you every time you try to heal, and it kind of feels like that's the direction they went. When every boss does it, it feels like it's just not that fun. Now, the next issue that I want to address is a really huge one to me, which is that many bosses in this game do not have stamina bars. In Dark Souls 3, if we look at a boss like Gale, I might be doing this level 1 run, and it might be really hard, but he does some attacks, I get around him, I do a couple of attacks, and then he does a couple more. We both have stamina bars, right? That's kind of how the game works, and that's fun to me. I really like the stamina bar style combat. But this game you still have a stamina bar, albeit it's pretty large, but you still have one. But a lot of the bosses don't have one. And what I mean, it can be perfectly encapsulated by Margit, the first fight. Right, you look at Margit, and if you're in front of him and he doesn't attack, he will, and there's footage of this, where he will just keep attacking me with his dagger, and then he'll jump away. And then if I try to run up to him, he'll just do another combo. So what ends up happening is Margit has a couple of attacks where you can attack him after, right? Where he like tries to do a stab poke and you can run around him, or he does this charge build up thing and then you can maybe get some hits in. But if he isn't doing one of these very specific attacks, he'll just keep going. Like, there isn't much you can do against Margit. Mechanically, he isn't that fun of a boss because of that. If I try to play aggressive, which I was in this footage, advantage right here. He just kind of punishes all aggression. And that's another thing that a lot of bosses do in this game. Not all of them, but bosses like Margit or Morgott, is not only they have no stamina bar, but they can also jump away. And this is very unfun when a boss can do maybe 7 or 8 attacks in a row and then jump away. And if you try to pursue them, they can do more attacks, because the game is you wait for Margit to do 1 of 2 attacks and then you hit him. And something also about Margit, before I move on from this point, is that you might think like, oh yeah, I just wait for him to do his hammer attack. But that's actually not how you're supposed to fight him, because he's a deceptively evil boss. He actually is coded, and I tried to show it here, that if you attack him after his hammer attack, you can hit him, but he's going to do his best combos immediately after that, like almost every time. You will get punished. Even if you get behind him, he'll still do those combos. It doesn't matter your positioning. If you're near him after a hammer attack, he's just going to do a ginormous combo. So then there's really only 2 attacks that I found to be very safe to hit him in phase 2 Margit, and that's just the first boss in the game, and he's already mechanically more bullshit than Slave Knight Gale, who's supposed to be one of the hardest bosses in the series. All I ever do in Margit is get punished for aggression. As I tried to show here, I'm trying to be aggressive, I'm getting punished. Slave Knight Gale might be hard hitting, but you know, same with Midir, they're hard hitting, but these bosses allow you to get some hits in. But Margit, he's hard hitting, and he doesn't let you get hits in unless he's doing 1 of, 2 attacks or his hammer attack. And then even if you get the hits in, he's going to do a ginormous combo. Now, the next point, and this is something I think everyone can relate to, is that the bosses just have a little bit too much delayed attacks. I don't want to say it's bad boss design, but when every single boss, like 70% of their attacks are either medium delayed or super delayed, and then they have a couple of fast attacks, it ends up meaning that you're just going to have to kind of memorize like 20 different delayed attacks. Whereas in Dark Souls 3, like, bosses usually had 70% of their attacks for normal timing, right? So you just dodge when you think you should, and then maybe 20% are delayed. And I liked that balance, right? You kind of dodge intuitively, sometimes you get punished. In Elden Ring, you are always getting punished for your delays. And so you have to just memorize every single attack for the dodge roll, or default like I did with Margit to baiting out 2 attacks. Every single boss in this game has these delays that are just... it just kind of gets annoying after a while. I will say some bosses do it well. I like Moog Lord of Blood and his delays, but it's just tiring when just every single boss just has delays. All their attacks are built like Nameless King, basically. Just a lot of medium delays, some super long delays, and it's just not that fun, to be honest, when every single boss is like this. The damage is so high that a lot of these bosses, you're going to die in 3 hits at over level 100 at endgame. Since a lot of people dislike this, what ends up happening is we see a lot of people just doing Mimic Cheese or doing co-op summons, probably more so than any other Dark Souls game that we've seen before. Now, some bosses I might be able to argue are fair, like Melania with her Waterfall Dance, because you can just kind of bait it out when you think it's going to come and then kind of play medium range. But then I do this at level 1 because I'm trying to beat her without like Bloodhound Step, because I felt like it'd be cooler that way. And it ends up not being a fun level of difficulty to just kind of look at Melania and then hope that she does her move so that it can maybe go on cooldown. You can actually have fun with the game again, because you're like, is she gonna do it? Is she gonna do it? And then she does it when you least expect it, then you fucking die because she didn't do it for so long and you just got bored. And it's just, this level of patience just isn't fun. I'm going to draw a parallel here between Dark Souls 2 and Elden Ring, because they both have the slowest character attack animations relative to the bosses, right? Dark Souls 2, the main character is very slow, the bosses are very slow. It's fair. To me, it's kind of boring, but some people enjoyed that, right? Now, Elden Ring, the bosses are still quite fast like Dark Souls 3, but if you go back to Dark Souls 3, you'll realize the character attack animations for every weapon is so much faster. Feels a lot more fair, because you can get that extra hit in a lot of bosses. You know, you can get one more. Whereas in Elden Ring, the player is slowed down from Dark Souls 3. The bosses are way harder, and it's kind of ends up feeling kind of like Dark Souls 2. You have to memorize, oh, I can only hit them once here or twice here. You know, it's really hard to get, even Crucible Knight, it's really hard to get, 2 light attacks on him without getting punished. And that just didn't happen as much in Dark Souls 3. It does get kind of annoying. And my last major point on the boss design in this game is there's a lot of positioning here. And what I mean by positioning is your position in the arena will get you killed where you don't actually have a chance to dodge roll out of an attack, right? So like you're behind the gravestone in Margit's fight, you fall off the edge because you're in a tough situation, or you're behind the tombstone in Lord of Blood's fight, so then your camera locks off and it makes it really hard. And this type of camera deaths or making the game hard by the camera locking off, like in Godskin Duo, when you're behind the pillars the camera keeps locking off, or just dying to just positioning in general just is not very fun to me. It's just I don't think it's fun to anyone. It makes the game harder. I guess it's the direction they wanted to go. I wouldn't mind positioning deaths too much if they didn't have all the other bullshit in each fight. Like, it's okay to have deaths to positioning in Margit's fight if you didn't also have an unlimited stamina bar where you have to bait out 2 attacks to try to hit them. And this really gets into one of my last points, which is that this obnoxious level difficulty is kind of excused because they have things like summons. Someone can comment and they can say, oh, like, you shouldn't be complaining, it's your choice to play without summons. Saying that summons exist is by no means a defense of the issues I have with the boss design. You can say, oh, well, if you don't like the bosses, just summon, it'll get easier, so you can't really complain. But that defense doesn't really work. I don't enjoy playing the game that way. I enjoy beating the bosses on my own, and it's just not as fun as a lot of Dark Souls 3 bosses, Dark Souls 3 DLC. Every boss just has like a little bit too much bullshit, and especially in the late game when it's combined with super high damage, super hard to dodge roll or impossible to dodge roll attacks, where you just kind of forced to play a baiting game to bait out their attacks, a bunch of super big AoE hitboxes, whatever the fuck Elden Beast star is. I mean, that just, I tried to beat the whole game level 1 without Bloodhound Step, and then I couldn't because, you know, Elden Beast star, what do you do? How do you dodge roll that? It's just not, it's not fun to have like 3 spells being shot at you while the Elden Beast fucking flies away to the other end of the arena. I'm going to end this by just bringing up one more point, which is that the hardest boss in a lot of Souls games kind of determine the future of the Souls games. What I mean by this is the hardest boss in Dark Souls 1 is Manus, and then Manus, you know, Dark Souls 3 ends up being a bunch of bosses like Manus, right? And one of the hardest bosses in Dark Souls 3 was Nameless King, and we just got a game with a bunch of Nameless Kings. It's just every boss is Nameless King in this game. All of them, really. And what I mean by that is if Manus is over the top in the amount of combos and attacks he does like a Dark Souls 3 boss, and very quick, Nameless King has a bunch of medium delayed attacks that kind of trick you with the dodge rolls. Like, you'd think you'd dodge roll here, but you didn't do it right? Nameless King wants you to delay that dodge roll. And that's great. I love Nameless King. It's a great fight. Did I want Nameless King to determine the future of all boss fights in Elden Ring? No, not really. And the hardest boss here is either Elden Beast, which is just magic spam flying away, or Malenia, which is having to bait out a giant one-shot attack. I'm okay with Malenia because she's supposed to be like the strongest person ever, so yeah, make the boss BS, but I'm just saying, I hope that these hard bosses in Elden Ring don't determine the future of like Elden Ring or Bloodborne 2 or whatever comes next. The future boss designs, I hope, are toned down from Elden Ring, if anything. I don't want them to be more difficult than this because it's not going to be a fun time. Maybe you'll see me summoning for that game if every boss is like Malenia. Maybe that's when I start summoning. I don't know. I don't think anybody is going to enjoy a game with a bunch of Malenias running around. Be like Godskin Duo, the sequel to Malenias, but I still do really like a lot of the bosses in this game. I beat the game 3 times. I'll probably beat it another time. It's just a lot of these bosses are just a bit obnoxiously difficult, and so I do agree with people when they say, you know, this game's maybe too difficult. Maybe FromSoft should take a step back. But I still love a lot of these bosses, except Elden Beast, actually. Fuck that boss.